Good morning, good morning. It is about a minute until 8. I feel much better this morning. I don't feel like I am rushing as much to get here, to be here on time. I share this with people every time I go live. I was in boarding school in South Africa in the early 1980s, and we had a headmistress who always said, if you're not 5 minutes early, you're late, and I live my life according to that principle. So I detest being late. So it is 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning. It is Easter Saturday. It's April the 3rd, 2021, and I am happy to be here. Good morning, whoever's out there. Welcome. I am so excited to be here this morning. The first couple of minutes of a live is always very nerve-wracking because you never know if anybody's going to show up or if people are going to watch or if you're just going to sit here and talk to yourself. So I usually like to just ramble on for a couple minutes before I get into the program and introduce myself here in a couple of seconds. I hope everybody out there is having a wonderful Saturday. So welcome to the Baffled Brain, Demystifying Dementia. This is the hour-long Facebook Live that will teach you everything you want to know about how to manage dementia. Today is April the 3rd, 2021, and it is episode 19, and I'm your host, Lizette Klute from Think Different Dementia, where we believe caregivers deserve reliable and accessible answers to questions, because providing caregivers actionable strategies and reliable information gives them and the people that they serve their best quality of life, improving relationships and delaying decline. So I have a whole bunch of questions this morning, and it really makes me very happy because that means people are asking me questions. And if you're on live, please put in the comments live. If you're on the replay later on, please put in the replay. There are three or four ways to connect with me. And I put them in the links there. You can schedule a 30-minute call with me for free on Calendly. It's just an app where you can get on my calendar and we can have a phone call. You can look at my website, which is still in the process of being developed. You can join my group called Think Different Dementia, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn, or you can also subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is Think Different Dementia. So the first question today is actually from somebody that is in both my groups. His name is Vince, and I threw up a post at 7 o'clock this morning that said if anybody had questions, just to throw them out there. And so he actually did, and I had enough time to get my brain organized and so on. So I am going to start with Vince's question. My habit when I do these lives are to actually tag people in them afterwards. So if you miss it, that you can get back to it. If you want to ask me a question, but you watch this on the replay, please just message me. I actually have a document on my computer where I put it in, and then I can answer the questions over the following week. So please throw those questions out at me. So Vince's question is the following. All right, Vince. His wife has had a sudden behavior change. She started refusing all her medication and has been steadfast on not bathing, refusing to go to the doctor or for lab results or for lab tests. In the past, she's been resistant, but now she is steadfast. He said he'd hired a CNA to help her bathe, and the first couple of visits were okay, but now she refuses and insists she has bathed herself. She hasn't, and she's been wearing the same nightgown now for about 3 weeks. So Vince, that's very interesting. The first thing that I notice is that you say it's a sudden behavior change. When I hear sudden behavior change, I always think something else is going on. People with dementia tend to gradually change. When there's a sudden change, it seems to me, in my experience, has always had an underlying reason. So people with, there, and this ties into Eunice's question. Eunice has a question about delirium, and so these two questions actually go hand in hand, and I'm going to kind of break them down here in a minute. So when a person tells me there's a sudden change, that always makes me wonder, is something underlying going on like a delirium? And what I mean by delirium, and so this answers Eunice's question, what I mean by delirium is something like a urinary tract infection. Did they change her medication? And I know you say she's started to refuse taking her medication, so maybe she's not getting one of the medications she really needs to be getting. But a delirium is a sudden change in somebody's cognition. They're usually caused by urinary tract infections. It can be something like pneumonia, aspiration pneumonia. It can be something like just a regular pneumonia or a cold or something. A sudden change is something that you should take a person to the hospital, not necessarily to the hospital, but to the doctor for, and have it checked out, because people with dementia, like all normal people, right? We have normal thinking processes, and and if we have a little bit of a change, everybody's thinking changes up and down, up and down. We're not all 100% static, right? So everybody's thinking processes change. We have good days and we have bad days, but we kind of have a norm, right? When we're functioning at a normal capacity in our brain, a little slight change is not so evident, right? A 5% change in our functioning is not evident, because we still are functioning at 75% of our capacity, right? When people with dementia have a sudden change, and their normal capacity is they're functioning at 20 or 30% of their capacity, that 5% change is a big difference. And that's why it's so obvious. That's why it's so evident that something else is going on. So the first thing is a sudden change. A sudden change reminds me of a delirium. It reminds me of something like a urinary tract infection. People can have urinary tract infections and have absolutely no symptoms. I mean, the normal symptoms for a UTI are things like burning, when you pee, dark pee, foul odor, those kinds of things. But there are some people who are asymptomatic. They have the bacteria in their urine all the time, and it just gets worse, and so she might have an underlying infection. So Eunice, that is what is a delirium. And now back to Vince. She started refusing her medications and became resistant to all her care, or a lot of her care. And she's been wearing the same nightgown for the past 3 weeks. So let's say this isn't a delirium. I would love for you to have it checked out. I would maybe even call the doctor and say, can we have her tested for a urinary tract infection? There can be other causes for a sudden change. But it seems to me, based off of what you said, that this has now been going on for about 3 weeks. Okay? So in the past, she's been able to take her medicine, and now she's not taking her medicine. I know you hired the CNA and that it had been going okay, but now she's insisting that she has bathed herself. When we look at, so this is what's called resistance to care, right? And we always have 3 things that we need to consider for any type of behavior, right? So what is behavior? What are these challenging behaviors that our loved ones who have dementia are experiencing? What is this? Well, it is typically a, what's the word I'm looking for? An unmet need, right? When a person is having a behavior, they are not necessarily able to communicate to us anymore what it is that they need. And this can come out in multiple different ways. And what I mean by unmet needs, it can be anything. It can be, I don't like breakfast. It can be anything. When a person with dementia is starting to have challenging behaviors, behaviors are always tied into not being able to tell people what is going on, what they need. It's up to us as the people around them to try to figure out what's causing those behaviors. So the behavior is what we see. What they may be feeling or needing is something different than what we might be feeling or needing. And there are always three things that when me, as a therapist who specializes, I'm an occupational therapist by background and training, when I go into people's houses, when I'm working with them, when they have dementia, I am always looking at three things. I'm looking at the person with dementia, obviously. I am looking at their environment, and I am looking at the caregiver, the care provider. So every behavior, everything that they are showing is their need to try to communicate something to us. And so it sounds like she doesn't want to bathe, and she's not changing her clothes, and she's having difficulty taking her medicine. You have to take each one of those situations, and now you need to start to turn into what I call the Dementia Detective, right? Excuse me. What's going on? What's going on in the environment? And you have to be very specific. Is the shower now at a different time of day? Is she bashful because she had the care provider come in and she doesn't really want somebody else seeing her naked? Is she really, afraid of, the shower? Is something different in the shower? What's going on? You have to be very specific, and you need to be specific about when the behavior is occurring, which means you have to write out everything. Who was there? Time of day? Situation. Was it hot? Was it cold? Was she tired? Was she hungry? Every specific thing that you can think of, you need to diarize. You need to write it down. But you also need to write it down on the days that it goes well, right? So say you are able to get her to take her shower again, right? So now she's taken her shower. What was different? Who was the care provider? What was the time of day? Were they stressed? Were they not stressed? Were you able to get her medicine? And everything, details. That's why I call it being the Dementia Detective. So if you are providing, you've got a lot, Vince, going on in that question, right? Sudden behavior changes, refusing to take her medications, refusing to bathe, refusing to go to the doctor. There's a lot to unpack there. What I would recommend you do, and I always try to give people some actionable things to try, is start to maybe, here's a suggestion. If you want to, you can videotape your interactions with her and send them to me in a private message. And I'll watch them and I'll see if I can see something. It could be how you're speaking to her, what you're saying to her. It could be, you're saying, let's take a bath. Well, now I've got, do you want to take a bath? Now I've got a choice. No, I don't want to take a bath. So there's a lot there that I'm unable to answer without a lot more specifics. If you need more specific help with this, I would recommend that you reach out to me privately. I do work as a consultant as well, so you have that as an option too. If you're not in a position to do that, then your other option is to maybe try to get some home health therapy involved. I always say start with home health because I work in home health. That puts the care team in your home. It makes them able to help you a little bit better in your home environment. So that's certainly an option to get a home health, physical therapy, occupational therapy, even a nurse and a nurse's aide to come in and see if they can help you figure out what's going on. Not all therapists are created equal, and not all therapists are specialized in dementia. So it's certainly an avenue for you to go to and see. So that was Vince's question. So Miss Eunice, if you're still out there or if you're watching it on the replay, it's a very early morning. It looks like it's Easter weekend. There's only one person on and nobody's hopping on and off. So I'm just going to keep kind of doing my little thing, answering questions. If anybody has a specific question, please throw it in the comments. This is my gift to you once a week. I do this to be able to serve this community. I am an occupational therapist, and there are 3 ways that you can get a hold of me. You can join my private Facebook group at Think Different Dementia. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel at Think Different Dementia, or you can not even text me. You can message me on Facebook at Lizette Klute, OT, and so that's just my name. Go ahead and reach out. If you're watching this on the replay, which most of you guys probably will be, just comment replay and start a dialogue with me. I love to chat with people. So Eunice, I hope I answered your question, the difference between dementia and delirium. Dementia is irreversible typically, even though I would argue that there are things that we can do to prevent dementia, and even when we have dementia, that we can do to maximize our cognitive abilities and prevent it from getting worse. So it's not hopeless, please, people. Dementia is not hopeless. And so dementia, Eunice, dementia is not a part of delirium is not a part of dementia. Delirium is a separate thing, and it's usually something that's going acutely on. Dementia is a umbrella term for several processes, things like Lewy body dementia or vascular dementia or Alzheimer's or mixed dementia or all of these kinds of things. So they're 2 separate things. So both you guys, I know that you guys watch are in my other group, so I hope this answers your question. So I had a question last week and I didn't get an opportunity to get to it. Her name is, I'm not going to say their name because I'm going to butcher it, but I'm going to add them in the comments. They said, my husband is 84. He is at the stage where he doesn't want to take off his pajamas in the morning. He wears them all day long and goes to bed and gets up the next morning and does the same thing. He will do this for 4 or 5 days in a row. It's hard to get him to wash or shower. He used to be the cleanest person. I used to nag him about it, but now I don't. So this is also resistance to care. And when people, what I want everybody with who are supporting people with dementia to know and understand is the person with dementia is not doing this on purpose. They are not purposefully being resistant to care. Their behavior is their only way of trying to communicate with us as the people who are in their life, their support system, to be able to help them. And so he's 84, and you say you used to nag him about it. Well, let's talk about the progression of dementia for a second. So when people, and this is why I like the functional assessment staging tool, because if you understand the functional assessment staging tool, and if you understand how people develop, then you understand how the progression of dementia kind of works, right? So staging and progression kind of work hand in hand. So when a person is born, right, the first thing that we do is we are able to suck and swallow, open our eyes, cry, breathe, those basic things, right? We're not able to, somebody holding a baby up, right? They're floppy. They don't hold their head up against gravity. We have to cradle them. We have to hold their head because they cannot do it themselves. So the first thing that we do is we can chew and swallow. Actually, not even chew. We can just suck and swallow, right? we can suck and swallow, and then then we start to be able to lay there. We maybe roll on our tummy, we hold our head up, right? We get on our hands and knees, we rock back and forth, we can start to sit. That's holding ourselves up against gravity, right? Then after we hold ourselves up against gravity, then we can sit there, and then we start to maybe pull up to stand. So now we've overcome gravity and we start to walk. And as we're starting to walk, now we sit in a chair, somebody feeds us, then we see the food in front of us and we pick it up with our fingers, not with a tool, not with a spoon, not with a fork, with our fingers. So we'll pick it up, we'll feed ourselves, we'll start to then, somebody will give us a spoon and we'll be very messy and we'll start to mess around and feed ourselves with a spoon. Now we know there's something outside of us, right? And then we start to develop further and we run around and we cruise and we're into everything and we pick everything up, but we don't really know what we're doing, and mom's telling us don't pick that up. And then we start to be able to follow more directions and help get dressed. You don't expect that child to go out there and then pick out the clothing for the season or anything. You give them their clothes and you literally put one arm in and say, here's the other arm, let's pull it over your head and pull it down. You tell them step by step what to do. Then you start to work on potty training, right? You tell them, let's go potty. You take them every 2 hours, you pull their pants down, you tell them, help me pull your pants up, and you're sequencing them through those things. And this is all what's happening as we're developing, right? And then we get to a point where now we're a little bit older and we can run to the fridge. We see there's something that we want behind the door. We know there's something behind the door that we want. We can open the fridge door and we can get our juicy out, and we can maybe do a few things like that. We're getting to the point where we can brush our teeth. We go to the sink. We know to take the toothbrush and the toothpaste, but we make a big old mess, right? We don't know how much to put on. We don't know to close it afterwards. We need a lot of help with these things, but we brush our teeth. The quality's not real good, so mom's telling us, come on, a little bit more, right? All of this is happening as we are developing. We get to the point where we can, our mom puts us in the bath and says, lets us play for a little bit. Do we want to always take a bath? No, but my mom makes me, right? Because I've been playing in the dirt. I smell to high heaven. I don't know that I smell. And I'm sometimes resistant to taking a bath, right? And so as all of these things are developing, these things are, this is normal, right? We get a little bit older, and now we're able to start picking out our clothing, and we're able to dress ourselves, but we maybe don't pick the right things. They don't fit together. The one thing is purple and the other thing is an awful plaid color mix, and it's freezing cold outside, and I put on a t-shirt and shorts. So I know how to get dressed, but I don't know what the season is. I don't know what the occasion is, because we're going to Easter Sunday church, and so I need help with those kinds of things. Then we keep to get bigger, and we start to, we've learned to toilet ourselves, we potty ourselves. Now our quality is getting better. Now we can start to follow directions. We can maybe make some small snacks for ourselves. We can go to the fridge and get a little thingy of cheese and open it up and throw it away. And all of this is happening as we develop. Then we get to the teenage years. Now we're starting to plan things out, organize. This is the executive functioning stuff. We start to know time. We start to be able to do all these higher level things, right? And then at 25, our cognition stabilizes and we are an adult. As a person is progressing through dementia, they are going through these phases backwards. So if you think about what I just said, what she mentioned is he's 84, he doesn't want to take off his pajamas, he wears them all day, goes to bed, gets up the next morning, does the same thing, do this for 4 or 5 days in a row. He doesn't want to wash or shower. He used to be clean. I used to nag him and now I don't. Well, he is at a point where he really cannot think this through on his own anymore. He needs somebody to tell him step by step what to do. He needs somebody to say, it's time to take a shower. Or if you don't even want to fight that battle, Here, let's go wash up, right? Here, let's take off your shirt step by step. Here, we're going to take off your shirt. Here's the washcloth. Let's wash your upper body. Here's the washcloth. Let's wash your private parts. Sit down, honey. Let me get your feet, right? Let the person do as much as they can, but he's probably not at a point anymore where he can go into the... Think about everything that you need to think about for a very basic thing of taking a bath, which we think is routine, or a shower, right? What are the steps? What are all the things that you need to independently think through in order to take a bath? Well, what time I'm going to take it, what I'm going to put on afterwards, so I have to make a decision to go get clean clothes, put them out on the bed, whatever. I have to turn on the water if I want it hot beforehand. I have to make sure that there's shampoo, soap, all of the supplies need to be there. I need to be able to go take off my clothing, go to the shower, make sure there's a towel. I have to adjust the water temperature, make sure I'm not going to burn. I have to get in, and then step by step, I have to sequence through taking a washcloth, putting soap on it, washing myself, making sure I don't get soap in it. I have to sequence through every body part, make sure that I don't just wash my right arm and not anything else. So I have to go step by step to the next thing. I have to sequence it through. I have to make sure that when I'm done, I have all of the soap off. I have all of the everything off of me in order to be able to get it to be clean. Then I have to decide, am I going to wash my hair? I've got to sequence all of that. I've got to switch off the water. Now I've got to get out. I've got to dry myself. I've got to make sure I'm dry. Now I'm cold. I've got to walk to the bedroom or wherever, make sure my toes are dry, all of this stuff, and then get dressed again. It's a very complex task, and we do it automatically. So to the person who asked this question, you got to ask yourself a couple of questions. Number one, is it super important that they take a shower? Okay, and back to Vince, that's also a question that I want you to ask yourself. Is it super necessary for her to take a shower, right? There's a lot about a shower that people don't necessarily think about. Is it super important that they actually shower, or do they just need to sponge bathe? Do they just need to get clean? Are you expecting that your husband is still able to do these things, and that he's actually at a higher level than what he really is? And your expectation that he be able to do this is not, they're not matching. So you're overestimating perhaps what he is able to do. Sometimes we underestimate what people with dementia are able to do, but most of the time people tend to overestimate what people are able to do, and that you actually need to step in now as his care provider and not nag him about it, but just make sure that he remains clean. Routine is our friend. Anything that a person does that stays in a very structured routine will significantly help them be able to do things. So waiting 4 or 5 days means that there's not a routine, and that's going to make it harder. And then the other question is, so what if he stays in his pajamas, right? Does it really make a difference? As long as he's getting clean and he doesn't smell. So what if he stays in his pajamas? Just come up with a routine. So if the routine is you want the routine to be, you figured out evenings are better, right? If you want to make the routine be at a certain time of day, you help him wash up and put on a clean pair of pajamas, and then let him stay in those until the next day, right? It doesn't matter, and it's not nagging him. And I know it's hard when we are spouses. I'm married. I have a husband. We've been married for 28 years. It must be so extremely difficult as a spouse who has been providing, we've walked together, right? We were equally yoked. We were together. We're now one spouse is needing to take care of another spouse. That must be so difficult. I'm not in that situation yet, but I've seen it repetitively over the 30 years that I've done this. It must be so difficult to actually be that person who has to do that. But the Lord put you together for a particular reason, and so it is our responsibility to provide that level of care. So what I would, this person, I can't say their name, which is why I'm not saying their name. I would encourage you to try to walk with your husband and support him now in the way that he needs to be supported. If you are unable to provide him that level of support, then you need to look at alternatives. Then you need to start looking at things like assisted living or skilled nursing, or if you're in a state that does community long-term care. I recommend to everybody, when you guys, if you are in the United States and you have Medicare, please get home health involved. Home health is such a wonderful tool. You can get some home health nursing, you can get some lots of different things out there: physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, nurse's aide, social worker. These are underutilized tools. So ask your physician and see if he can order you some home health therapy. So I hope that was a helpful description. The next question was Stacy. Stacy asked, oh, I can't read without my eyes. I got eyes in, but I need extra eyes. So here are my extra eyes. So Stacy said, for those of you who have loved ones or residents who are on Medicaid, how are you spending their stimulus money if they received it? Each stimulus check needs to be spent 1 year after receiving it, or it will be held against you for your Medicaid benefits. At her loved one's facility, we're trying our best to spend down the money for each person. Any creative ideas outside of clothes, TVs, tablets, bonus points for ideas for those who are in a sensory group, deaf, blind, and or limited mobility. So Stacy, that was a great question, and as I'm rereading this question, it almost sounds like you are a care provider in a facility and not a loved one of a person in of a person with dementia. So as to the sensory stuff, so Stacy, if that is the case, I'm an occupational therapist, and I'm actually going to suggest that if you have people who are look into some, for people who are in a phase where they are in a seating and positioning phase, if you need to spend down their stimulus check, look at a rock and go. Rock and goes are a type of a wheel. It's not a wheelchair, but it is a wheelchair. It was made by Invacare. I haven't looked at a rock and go in a while because I've been in home health more than in a skilled nursing facility. But a rock and go, if you have somebody who's a mover, right, or if you have somebody who is in bed, look at some seating and positioning for them. You have Broda chairs. Broda chairs are highly, they are wonderful seating and positioning. They're probably more than the stimulus check, but if you have to spend down some stuff, and if the family is willing to put it in, or if the facility is willing to put it in, you may be able to come up with some creative collaborations for a rock and go. A rock and go, the last time I priced them out, were about $1,500, so that's about the stimulus check. Because it gives them a seating and positioning. If it's like a wheelchair, they can still propel, but you can let them, if they're getting agitated, they can sit and rock. So maybe consider that. So a rock and go, a Broda chair for seating and positioning is a great thing for a skilled nursing facility. Some fidget blankets. I would, recommend some fidget blankets. And what about some of these more creative ideas, things like these automated pets, right? Dogs and cats or things like that purr, that move, and even baby dolls that are, and I know there's a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? There's a lot of resistance sometimes out there saying people are adults and we shouldn't do this, but if it gives them comfort, why not? So a realistic baby doll, that weighs about what a baby would, that may cry or be able to be switched on and off. Some of these more realistic things to be able to provide them with a level of care. What about a weighted blanket? A weighted blanket is something that can truly help somebody with dementia if they're getting agitated. If you're looking for sensory input, those are some ideas for you, Miss Stacy. And I think those, that's a great thing to be doing for the people with dementia in your facility. Thank you so much for that question. And if you're a person who has a loved one who you need to spend down their money, you can perhaps even look at those resources for yourself. And if they were too fast, I will try to put some tags in the comments later on. There's only one person out there. Would you say, am I actually live? Because it's very unusual that nobody's hopping on and nobody's hopping off. And it's been about an hour and I usually have a couple of comments. So I don't know if I'm missing my comments or if something's gone wrong. Everything looks normal on my side. So I don't know, guys. This is kind of very strange, but oh well, I'll just go with the flow. I got 2 more questions. I have 3 more questions maybe, and I will tag everybody that I know. There was a question by Imelda. She says, "Hi, I'm taking care of my husband who has dementia, diagnosed about 5 years. He was in a nursing home for 2 months and I took him home about 3 years ago. He looks a lot better. He's more comfortable and clean, smiles a lot in the mornings. He has that blank stare, keeps looking at the ceiling. Is this a sign of the disease progressing?" So, Imelda, I thought that was a really interesting question. The best thing, and I think I answered that kind of in the comments on that day, but the best thing, and I've got a cat hair on my, there we go. The best thing that I could say is maybe, I don't know enough about him. Is he getting up? Was he an early morning riser? Is it just taking him longer to wake up in the morning? A few thoughts that come up is, does he need, is this as he's waking up, or is this somebody who is bedridden? Is he up in a chair and he's sitting staring at the ceiling? Does he maybe need more stimulation? Do you need to try to engage him more in activities? People with dementia get to a point where they don't initiate activities anymore. So they may just be at a point where they are not actually initiating things, where they need you to kind of say, "Hey, honey, let's go for a walk," or "Here, let's sit at the table. Help me sort out these 2 things," and give him 2 things to sort. Engage him, see if that helps a little bit. Looking at the ceiling, is it a sign that the disease is progressing? I don't think per se it's a sign that the disease is progressing, but it's definitely, a sign that he may be bored. He doesn't know how to do things on his own anymore. So go ahead and see if you can engage him in an activity. And reach out to me if you need to or want to later on. All right, so the next question was from Christine, and it was actually this morning in this group, so I'm just going to quickly answer this. I was wondering if anybody has had the experience of their loved one going into transitional care or rehab after surgery. It sounds like they had a head injury, draining blood from the brain due to a fall, and hopefully going back home. Did they decline? Did they stay the same? She seems to have come out of surgery the same as she was before, with no signs of decline. So, Christine, that is a great question. I'm so glad you asked this. I'm an occupational therapist, and from what I can tell from your question is the following. It is a loved one who fell, had a bleed, so has an underlying dementia, and now has for lack of a better word, a head injury of some sort. There are multiple different ways that it could be. I don't know exactly what type of a head injury, but they have a underlying dementia and they have had surgery. From your description, it sounds like your loved one was still maybe at a higher level when they fell, and that they're and that she's not shown decline. So people who have dementia, they're, when you're looking at, and this is my world because this is rehab, right? So when you're looking at rehab, there are two things. There's rehabilitation, which means I'm working on getting somebody better. When I go in, say in this case, it's a person without dementia, they fall, they get a brain bleed, they have deficits because of their brain bleed, and then I go and I'm trying to rehabilitate them back to their previous level of independence. That is rehab. That's what a transitional care is for. Then you have habilitation. Habilitation means we know that the person is likely not going to be getting better, right? So people with dementia, so habilitation, initially when we're working with people, we're always trying to rehab them. We're always going to try to get them back to where they were before. When we get to a point where we know that they're not going to get any better, then it turns into habilitation. Habilitation means trying to keep the person at that level. We don't want them to decline. We don't want them to decline. We want to keep them at that level. So think about that as kind of a maintenance phase. So based on your description, Christine, I would say that you should consider this transitional rehab. I know it's very difficult right now with COVID for people to consider rehab, but home health is very limited. And if you have somebody who has had a head injury and dementia, we want to try to rehab them. We want to try to do as much therapy at the front end as we can, because if they can get better, we want them to get better. And so you're not going to know which category she falls into. Is she a rehab category or if they're a habilitation category? Because we're first going to start with rehab, and then when we've gotten them as best as we can, then we're going to try to maintain them. So I would strongly encourage you, Christine, to have your loved one go to a transitional rehab or even a rehab, and start from there. And wonderful, so glad that they did not show an immediate decline. It is not uncommon though, Christine, that he or she may move from where they are into the transitional rehab and show a little bit of a decline. That is not uncommon at all. So expect it. But hopefully, as the blood is getting off of their brain, that they're going to show this improvement initially. That's what we're hoping for from a rehab perspective. That was a great question. Thank you so much for asking it. And nobody's hopping on. I think something's wrong. But anyway, so there are 3 ways to get a hold of me primarily. You can I put the links in the comments at the beginning. You can message me on Facebook. My name is Lizette Kluta OT. You can join my private Facebook group called Think Different Dementia, and you can also subscribe to my YouTube channel called Think Different Dementia. I'm here for you guys. It's been an odd morning. I've got about 15 minutes. I've got 2 more questions, and then I'm just going to, I don't know. My computer might not have updated, and everybody's out there, and I don't see anything. So if that's the case, forgive me, because this has happened actually before. Facebook. There's 7 people out there, and there are 15 comments. Where did they go? I don't know where the comments are. All right. My computer has fritzed on me, guys, so I'm glad you're out there. I'm sorry, I just see you now. I don't know why I cannot see my comments this morning, and I don't want to refresh the page because I'm scared I go. Apologize, this is oops. Changes you make may not be saved, so I'm not going to do that. I don't know what happened to my comments. I really don't. Well, anyway, I see 7 of you guys are out there. All right, I'm going to try it. Guys, it's Lizette again. I am so very sorry. My Facebook fritzed this morning, and I apologize. I know there were a bunch of people on watching. I just came back on to say that it was a technical. I've been having technical issues last couple of days, so I'm going to stop today's episode. I'll be back next Saturday. Just in case you guys are still out there, I just didn't want you to be able to. I wanted you to know that I was there. It fritzed. I had to reload my page. When I reloaded my page, I could see the comments, but I think my Facebook actually went away. So my live stream went away. So I'm sitting there talking, answering people's questions, and you guys couldn't see it. So I significantly apologize. Technology, over the last couple of days, I've struggled. I was trying to do a live with a lady in Australia last night, and it didn't work out either. So I just hopped back on here. I see a couple people hopping back on here. I wasn't really planning on continuing unless you have a couple of questions, because I see a few people hopping on. So I'll give it a minute. If you want to, you can throw a question in there for me, and I will answer it since I still have some time. So anyway, hey, I know, yeah, Beck, hey Charles, I'm sorry. Hey Lori, I don't know what happened this morning. I had some sort of technical issues. I was trying my level best. I sat there for 50 minutes talking, and there was like my little thing that I can see where I see how many people are watching, and it's usually like 1 or 2 and then 10, back and forth like that. It stayed at 1 the whole entire time. So people were making comments and I couldn't see their comments. So I tried to reload the page. Note to self, don't do that again. I could see your comments, but now I was in a different live. So who knows? Charles, I'm glad you were able to manage her, wash her face. A couple of suggestions. Not enough fairy dust. It always helps. So Charles, maybe a couple of suggestions for you is try to engage her as much as possible. Say, here's the washcloth, wash your face. Do some hand over hand. See if you can get her. Sometimes if we initiate the movement, here's the washcloth. And if I remember correctly, Charles, were you not talking about maybe an adult day program in the UK? I would strongly encourage you to do that, to look at that. And then I know, Vince, I was starting to think about asking you about an adult day program too. I know right now it is not ideal for a lot of people to put their loved ones to put their loved ones in a facility because of COVID. So I know that is a very difficult decision. The only person that can make that decision is you. So Charles, regarding the COVID vaccine, so let's talk about that for a second. It is everybody's own decision whether or not to take the COVID vaccine. If you cannot get it, if for whatever reason, and I do not understand the social services in the UK, but I'm starting to make friends with some therapists in the UK, so I might be able to start to ask them some questions about it. I don't know how you access your services in the UK. So about the COVID vaccine, you have to make a decision as her care provider, as her husband, which battle you're going to fight. I believe that vaccines are safe. I'm not afraid of vaccines in the sense of there's a lot of research that goes into them, etc. COVID is something that we do not understand. COVID vaccines, I have seen, these are anecdotal. Some people do appear to have some sort of a reaction from them. Not the same type of reaction, but if they've had something else, sometimes it seems to push people into or out of other things. Having said that, if you are at a point, Charles, here in the UK, that you cannot provide the level of care on your own because you're burning out, right? If you cannot provide your wife with the level of care that that she needs because you're burning out, we have to take care of you first. If that means that the only way that you can get help is by having her go to an adult daycare or adult day program in the UK, or your mom, okay, then you may need to weigh the pros and cons of the risk. Is it worth the risk? Is it worth the risk to have, for you to, because dementia is a marathon. It is not a sprint. If you are burning out, Charles, and you cannot get social services in the UK to give you more services, but you have an adult day program available, but she has to have the shot, then the way I look at it from the outside looking in, what I would say to you is that I would get the shot. If that's the only way you can get help, I think getting your mom the shot, but this is my opinion, right? I cannot make the decision for you. But when you make a decision like this, you just make the best. The thing we have to understand is that we make decisions, right? We make decisions for or with our loved one that we have their best interest at heart. And we're not making a decision for them to be harmed. And so let's just play this out worst case scenario. I'll just go worst case scenario, right? Say you make the decision. You are burning out. You cannot do this anymore. You have to have her have a COVID shot in order for her to go to an adult daycare. So you make the decision so that you can keep her at home for longer for her to get the COVID shot. And she has an adverse reaction to it, right? We're all going to die. All of us are going to die at some point or another. Every single one of us, right? You didn't cause this to happen. You were trying to take care of her at home. You cannot feel guilty for her having an adverse reaction if your purposes and your intents were to keep her at home, and the only way you could keep her at home was by her having the shot, right? So I would weigh my pros and cons. If you cannot keep her at home any other way because you're burning out, then ultimately she's going to end up in a facility anyway, right? And in order for her to go to a facility to live, she will have to have the vaccine. So we are in uncharted territory. We are absolutely in uncharted territory regarding people with dementia and vaccine for COVID, or even ourselves and vaccines for COVID. But I can tell you experientially, having worked in healthcare through this COVID, right, I see COVID patients. I go into people's houses where they have had COVID. It's a vast, it's like some people have nothing wrong. It's like, oh, nothing wrong. Some people have permanent changes and there's no way to know. So I still believe the vaccine is better than not having the vaccine. I know myself, I had the first one and I had no symptoms the second one. I either had an underlying infection or something. And there's even talk that people who've had COVID and didn't know, who have the second vaccine, feel like poo-poo. I might have actually had it and I felt like poo-poo after it. So, Charles, back to your question. You're the only one who can decide about the vaccine for your mom. You are the only one who can make that decision. I still think it's better than not having not having the vaccine, especially if you are going to burn out. If you cannot get more help in the house, you need to be able to have your mom go somewhere so you can get a break. So the last thing I'm going to say, since this was kind of an odd little live stream today, I apologize for my technical difficulties. Who the heck knows what happens? Is I want to say there are 3 ways you can connect with me. You can join my Facebook group at Think Different Dementia. You can join my YouTube channel or subscribe to my YouTube channel at Think Different Dementia. And you can also message me on Facebook at Lizette Kluta OT. Today is, I always start the real live stream with my little story, which is it's my weekly hour-long Facebook Live, which today was an hour long in 2 sections. And today is April the 3rd. It is episode 19. Episode 19 was a little bit of a mess, but that's okay. And I am your host, Lizette Kluta. I'm an occupational therapist from Think Different Dementia, where I believe caregivers deserve reliable and accessible answers to questions, because giving you actionable strategies and reliable information will allow you to keep your loved one at home with their best quality of life, improving your relationships and delaying their decline. And since this is Easter weekend, I'm going to end this broadcast today with "The Lord bless you and keep you," like I always say. And today is special. He is risen. He is risen indeed. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to, try to put these two live streams together. It was a little bit of a mess, but who knows? Donkey Eunice, everybody, blessings. I will see you guys again next week. It was an odd little Facebook Live, but it's okay. Live and learn. I will be back again next Saturday. Bye.